What happens when a beloved British icon walks into what should have been a friendly daytime television chat only to face the most brutal public humiliation of his career? In just 36 seconds, one shocking comment would turn Sir Cliff Richard from gracious guest to defending victim and transform Denise Welch from television host into the most hated woman in Britain. The ITV studios hummed with their usual midday energy as Sir Cliff Richard made his way through the corridors toward the Loose Women's set. At 73 years old, the legendary singer had agreed to appear on the show to discuss his upcoming tour and his decade-spanning career. But what he walked into that Tuesday afternoon would become one of the most talked-about moments in British television history. Cliff settled into the guest chair, his signature warmth radiating across the room as he greeted the panel. Denise Welch sat center stage as the lead presenter, flanked by Nadia Sawalha, Linda Robson, and Kay Adams. The stage lights glowed. The audience clapped, and yet, something in Denise's eyes betrayed an edge that chilled the air. "So, Cliff," she began, her tone sharp as glass, "still performing at your age. Don't you think it's time to hang up the microphone and let someone younger take the spotlight?" The studio fell still. Cliff's practiced smile faltered just slightly before he gathered himself. "Well, Denise, as long as people want to hear me sing, and I'm able. Age is just a number," he replied gently. But Denise pressed harder. "That's all very sentimental," she said with a smirk. "Your last few albums have been commercial disasters. Isn't this just about ego now?" The audience gasped. Even her fellow hosts froze, stunned by her bluntness. Cliff took a steadying breath. "I have loyal fans who still support me," he replied firmly, "and I'm grateful for them." Yet Denise only leaned closer, voice rising. "You're living in the past, clinging to glory days that weren't that glorious to begin with." The room's tension thickened. Cliff's calm began to crack, not from anger, but disbelief. "Denise," he said softly, "I came here to talk about my music, not to defend my existence." But she laughed, her words dripping with contempt. "Oh, come on. When you look in the mirror, do you really see a relevant artist? Or an old man chasing what's long gone?" The audience stirred uneasily. It was only the beginning of a confrontation that no one could have predicted. Nadia Sawalha broke the growing silence. "Denise, that's unfair," she said, her voice firm but calm. "Sir Cliff has brought joy to millions." But Denise rolled her eyes. "Joy? Please. Half our viewers don't even know who he is." The jab stung, and Cliff's composure faltered for a moment. "I've been on many shows," he said, his voice low but steady. "I've faced criticism, but I've never been spoken to this way." Denise smirked. "Maybe you're just not used to real journalism." The tension in the studio became almost unbearable. Linda Robson finally interjected. "Denise, maybe we should move on to talk about the tour." But Denise wasn't done. "You know what really bothers me?" she continued, leaning forward. "You take up space that could go to new talent. Why not just bow out gracefully?" The words landed like daggers. Cliff's face paled. "Every artist deserves respect," he said quietly. "I've never tried to block anyone's path." But Denise scoffed. "Respect is earned, Cliff. You're not above tough questions." Kay Adams, clearly uncomfortable, tried to redirect the discussion. "Sir Cliff, maybe tell us about your charity work." But Denise cut her off sharply. "Oh yes, the charity angle. Nothing like a bit of public generosity to stay relevant, huh?" The audience gasped. One voice shouted from the back, "That's disgusting." Cliff's eyes widened, his voice trembling as he replied, "My charitable work? Are you suggesting that helping sick children is just a publicity stunt? That's deeply offensive." Nadia's face flushed with anger. "Denise, that's cruel," she said sharply. "You've crossed a line." "I'll question whatever I like," Denise snapped. "If Cliff can't handle the truth, maybe he shouldn't be here." The audience erupted in disapproval. "These aren't questions," Linda cried. "You're being vile. Don't tell me how to do my job." Denise fired back. "I'm not here to coddle has-beens." The word echoed through the studio like an explosion. Cliff actually recoiled, too stunned to speak. Kay Adams stood up from her seat, trembling with anger. "Denise, this is unacceptable." "Sir Cliff, I apologize on behalf of the show." "Sit down, Kay," Denise barked. But the audience had already chosen their side, and it wasn't hers. Cliff straightened, the light catching his face as he spoke with quiet strength. Real journalists, he said, ask hard questions, but they don't try to destroy someone's dignity for entertainment. The studio erupted in applause, the sound swelling until Denise could barely be heard. Oh, playing the victim now, she sneered. The great Sir Cliff Richard, begging for sympathy. Cliff rose slowly to his feet, his eyes heavy with disappointment. In over 50 years in this business, he said firmly, I've never been treated with such unprofessional cruelty. Denise tried to interrupt, but Cliff raised his hand. You've mocked my age, my music, and my charity work. You've shown contempt not only for me, but for every person who's supported me. The audience burst into loud applause, many standing. Denise's smirk began to fade. Cliff continued, his voice steady and sincere. I came here to share my joy about returning to the stage, to talk about a tour that thousands are excited for. Instead, I've had to defend my right to exist as an artist. Finished with your speech? Denise shot back, but her voice trembled. Cliff looked directly at her. What saddens me most is that a young artist might see this and think cruelty is acceptable. The applause grew louder, rolling like a wave. In desperation, Denise tried again. If you're so sensitive, maybe you should stay with your little fan clubs. Cliff shook his head gently. You're not just insulting me, Denise. You're insulting the people who found joy in my songs, the memories tied to them. You're dismissing what they love as worthless. Nadia turned to the camera. This does not represent the values of this show, she said firmly. Sir Cliff is a legend. Nadia, you're out of line. Denise snapped. No, Linda interjected. She's right. This is disgraceful. Cliff looked at them, eyes soft with gratitude. Thank you, he said. But I think it's clear I'm not welcome here. He began to remove his microphone. The audience gasped again, realizing what was happening. Running away? Denise jeered. Cliff paused mid-motion, looking at her with pity. Denise, I've survived 5 decades in an industry that eats people alive, he said. But I've never confused cruelty with strength. The silence that followed was absolute. Real toughness, Cliff said finally, his voice echoing in the still air, is treating people with respect, even when you disagree. Real strength is lifting others up, not tearing them down. What you've done today isn't tough, it's sad. Denise's face flushed, red as the audience applauded, louder than ever before. Don't lecture me about strength, she shouted. You don't know what I've been through. Cliff nodded softly. You're right, I don't. But I'd never use my pain as an excuse to cause more. The words hit hard. Denise's confidence cracked. Around her, the other women sat in stunned silence. Kay Adams stepped closer to Cliff. Sir Cliff, please don't let this taint your view of us. Cliff smiled faintly. I know it doesn't represent you. You 3 have shown nothing but grace. Linda wiped her eyes. I'm so sorry, she whispered. You deserve better. From the back of the audience, someone shouted, We love you, Cliff. The crowd began cheering again. Denise looked around, realizing she'd lost everything, the audience, her co-hosts, and her composure. In one final burst of defensiveness, she said, At least when I'm forgotten, it won't be because I sang lightweight pop songs that meant nothing. The reaction was explosive. Viewers stood up, shouting in anger. But Cliff's expression didn't harden. It softened. Denise, he said quietly, I feel sorry for you. Living with that much bitterness must be exhausting. The simple, compassionate response disarmed everyone. The audience fell silent. Denise's face crumpled as she realized the cameras were still rolling. Nadia stood and approached Cliff. Sir Cliff, please accept my apology, and the apology of everyone who believes in kindness. Cliff nodded. Your compassion has been the one bright spot in this dark moment. The audience's applause roared once again. Cliff turned to them. To everyone watching, he said, Remember, kindness costs nothing, but it's worth everything. Don't let anyone tell you cruelty is strength. We can be better than that. The studio rose to its feet in a standing ovation. Cliff placed a hand on his heart, his eyes glistening, and walked off set with quiet dignity. Behind him, Denise sat motionless, her head in her hands, beside the empty chair that now symbolized what true strength looks like: grace, decency, and unshakable respect in the face of cruelty.